The metal around me was still screaming when the hatch tore open from the outside. I was hanging upside down in the crushed shell of my escape pod, straps cutting into my shoulders, smoke curling from a cracked panel near my head. 3 minutes earlier, my transport ship had been ripped apart by a raider strike, and I had been thrown into the dark in a pod with barely enough air to last the hour. Now something small and fast was climbing through the wreckage toward me, and I could not tell if it had come to save me or finish the job. Then 2 rows of glowing violet eyes locked onto mine, and a voice cut through the static of my dying comm unit. Salvage claim. Confirmed. I blinked at her. She was maybe 4 feet tall, covered in smooth gray plating, with narrow blade-like arms folded neatly behind her back. She looked like she had tumbled straight out of a bad dream about insects, except her voice was calm, quick, and entirely too pleased with itself. "I am Ivy Tal-Saren, of the Second Drift Clan," she said, already pulling a scanning device from her belt. Biological signature confirmed. Sapient, unregistered, drifting in neutral debris field with no active distress beacon and no ownership chip. Under Convergence Accord Statute 12, Section 4, you are Salvage, and I found you first. "I am not Salvage," I said, my voice cracking from smoke and fear. "I am a person. Get me out of these straps before this pod goes up." She was already cutting the straps with one bladed hand, fast and precise, like she had done this 100 times before. "That is exactly what Salvage always says," she muttered. "Every crate of stolen tech, every stray android, every half-burned survivor I have ever pulled out of a wreck, they all tell me they are a person, right before I file the paperwork. Hold still." The straps snapped. I dropped straight into her arms, which should not have been strong enough to catch a grown man, but somehow were. She hauled me over her shoulder like a sack of grain, and moved through the wreckage with a speed that made my stomach drop, dodging sparking wires and a chunk of hull that crashed down exactly where we had been standing 2 seconds earlier. Behind us, an alarm shrieked. The raider ship that had destroyed my transport was circling back. "They are coming to finish the sweep," she said, breaking into a full run now. Boots ringing against torn metal. "They like to make sure there are no survivors left to talk, which means I need to get my claim off this wreck before it becomes someone else's problem." "Your claim," I said, gritting my teeth against the pain in my ribs. "You mean me?" "I mean you," she said, not even out of breath. "Now stop talking and hold on, because this next part is going to hurt." She was right. She threw us both through a gap in the hull just as the wreck lit up behind us in a wave of heat and light. And for one long, terrifying second, we were falling through open space with nothing but her small ship waiting below, its cargo bay door open like a mouth. We hit the deck hard. The door slammed shut. The ship lurched forward, engines screaming, and through the narrow viewport, I watched the raider vessel swing past the burning wreck, searching, and find nothing. Ivy lay on the deck beside me for a moment, breathing hard, then sat up and looked at me with something like triumph. "See," she said, "already worth the trouble. Most salvage does not come with a free chase scene." I coughed out a laugh that turned into a groan, because 3 of my ribs did not agree that anything about this had been worth it. "I am not staying salvage," I told her. "The second we reach a station with a working comm relay, I am filing a correction. I am a person. I have a name, Callum Ash. I have family. I have rights." Ivy tilted her head, unblinking. "You have a name now. Before you had a chip malfunction and a burning pod. Names come later. Rights come with registration." "And registration," she said, tapping a small chip clipped to her collar, "takes time, which I intend to use to my advantage." I did not like the sound of that at all. The ship she flew was called the Renfast, and it was held together in a way that made me deeply uneasy every time we hit turbulence. Panels did not match. Wires ran exposed along the ceiling, but it moved fast, and more importantly, it kept moving, which was more than I could say for my own ship an hour ago. Ivy set a course, then turned in her chair to study me, the way someone studies a puzzle they are proud of solving. "You are worth more than you think," she said. "Humans are rare out here, feared, mostly. There are stories about your kind ending wars that had been running for centuries, simply by deciding they were finished. Nobody trusts a species that calm and that dangerous at the same time. But nobody has ever tried keeping one either. That makes you interesting. And valuable. And mine. I am not a pet, I said. No, she agreed, turning back to her controls. Pets do not come with resale value. I opened my mouth to argue further, and that was the exact moment every alarm on the Renfast began to scream at once. Ivy's hands moved across the console faster than I could follow. Tracking signal, she said, voice suddenly sharp and focused. They picked up our engine trail before the jump. That raider crew is not letting this go. They must have realized the wreck had no body in it, which means they know someone got out alive. They are following us, I said, my heart slamming against my cracked ribs. They are gaining, she corrected. This ship was built for scavenging, not running. Get into the crash seat behind me and strap in, now. I did not argue. I threw myself into the seat and pulled the straps tight, just as the Renfast shuddered from a glancing hit, sparks raining down from an overhead panel. Ivy swore in a language I did not understand, and hauled the ship into a hard turn, weaving between two drifting asteroid fragments, with barely a hand's width to spare on either side. They are faster, she said through gritted teeth, but this field is thick enough to slow them down if I can thread it right. Hold on to something. The next 2 minutes were the longest of my life. The Renfast bucked and spun through a maze of tumbling rock, while weapons fire lit up the dark outside the viewport, each near miss, close enough to rattle my teeth. Ivy flew with a kind of focused calm that did not match the chaos around us, muttering distances and angles under her breath like a countdown only she could hear. Then, without warning, she cut the engines completely. "What are you doing?" I shouted over the groan of stressed metal. "Making us disappear," she said. "Drifting is quiet. Engines are loud. If I am right, they will fly past us in the dark and waste 10 minutes searching the wrong stretch of field." The ship went silent, except for the low hum of life support. Through the viewport, I watched the raider vessels scream past above us, weapons still firing at where we should have been, then vanish into the field ahead, exactly as Ivy had predicted. She waited another full minute before letting out a slow breath and restarting the engines at low power, easing us away in the opposite direction. "That," she said, "was closer than I like." "You could have told me that plan before doing it," I said, my hands still shaking against the straps. "If I had told you, you would have argued about the details, and there was no time for details." She glanced back at me, and for the first time since pulling me out of the wreck, her voice softened slightly. "You are alive. That is the only detail that matters right now." I did not have a response to that. I just sat there, breathing, grateful, in a way I did not want to admit out loud. We reached a station 3 hours later, a battered ring of metal called Halvan Junction that orbited a dead moon on the edge of neutral space. Ivy guided the Renfast into a docking berth with the same careless confidence she did everything else, and the moment the airlock hissed open, she grabbed my arm. "Stay close," she said. "Salvage claims get contested here more often than anywhere else in the sector. If anyone asks, you belong to me, and the paperwork is already filed." The inside of the station was loud and crowded, full of species I had never seen before, most of them giving me the same look people give a rare animal at a market stall. A few actually stopped to stare. One creature with too many joints in its arms leaned toward its companion and whispered something that included the word human, in a tone that was somewhere between fear and fascination. We had barely crossed the main concourse when a voice called out behind us, hard and clipped with authority. "Ivy Talsaren, stop right there." Ivy did not stop walking, but her shoulders tensed. A tall figure in a patrol uniform stepped into our path, flanked by 2 armed escorts. The patrol officer's eyes moved from Ivy to me and narrowed. "That is a human," she said. "Unregistered humans are not casual salvage, Ivy. They fall under a special protection clause, which means every claim gets reviewed before it is finalized. Where did you find him?" "Debris field, 3 systems out," Ivy said smoothly. "Raider strike survivor. I filed already, Officer Rayland. Check your own system before you accuse me of anything." The officer, whose name tag read simply Dale Rayland, tapped at a device on her wrist, and I watched her expression shift slightly as data scrolled past. "Filed within the hour of extraction," she said slowly. "That is either extremely lucky timing, or you knew exactly what you were doing." I always know exactly what I am doing, Ivy said. Raylan's eyes moved to me again, softer this time. Are you being held against your will? She asked me directly. You do not have to answer to protect her. Salvage law does not apply to sapient beings without a formal review, and I can start that review right now if you want out. Every part of me wanted to say yes. I wanted to say take me somewhere safe, somewhere I could contact my family, somewhere this strange, sharp, terrifying girl with too many claws had no hold over me at all. But I thought about the wreck, about the straps cut clean in under 2 seconds, about the engines going silent at exactly the right moment, while weapons fire screamed past overhead, about the fact that if she had left me in that pod even 30 more seconds, I would not be standing here at all. She saved my life twice in one day, I said finally. I want the review done properly, but until then, I am staying with her. Raylan studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Your choice is noted, she said. But know this. If that filing turns out to be false, or if anything happens to you while under her claim, the consequences will not be small. Ivy, you have 30 days to complete formal registration through proper channels, not shortcuts. After that, the review board decides everything, and I promise you, they will look very closely. Understood, Ivy said, and for once there was no smugness in her voice at all. Raylan walked away with her escorts, and the moment she was gone, Ivy let out a breath she had clearly been holding. 30 days, she muttered. That is not much time. Time for what exactly? I asked. She turned to face me fully, and for the first time since I had met her, she looked almost uncertain. To prove you are not being taken advantage of, she said. To build an actual case that this was fair, that you are safe, that I am not just some scavenger who got lucky with a valuable find. Because if I do not, the review board will pull you out of my custody the moment those 30 days are up, and everything that happened today, the wreck, the chase, all of it, will not matter at all. I studied her for a long moment, this strange creature who had torn me out of a dying pod and outflown armed raiders through an asteroid field without ever once raising her voice in panic. Then help me understand something, I said. You could have grabbed anything in that debris field, spare parts, working tech, something simple that would not come with review boards and 30-day deadlines and armed patrol officers threatening you. Why go through all of this for me? Ivy was quiet for a moment, her violet eyes unreadable. Because everyone in this sector looks at your species and sees a weapon, she finally said. A thing to fear from a distance. I looked at you strapped into that pod, terrified and coughing on smoke, and I did not see a weapon. I saw someone who needed to get out. That is rarer to find than you might think. That is it? I asked. That is the whole reason. That, she said, and you were the closest thing worth saving in the entire field. She almost smiled. Also, I already filed the paperwork, and I do not like wasting good paperwork. I found myself laughing despite the ache in my ribs, despite the exhaustion pulling at every part of me, despite the fact that my entire life had been turned upside down in the space of a single afternoon. 30 days, I said. Then we prove your case is real. Our case, she corrected. You are part of this claim whether you like the word or not. I looked out through the station's viewport at the vast, dark stretching beyond Halvan Junction, thinking about home, about everything I had lost in that wreck, about the uncertain road ahead of us. Then I looked at Ivy, standing there with her claim chip clipped to her collar, and her jaw set with the same fierce determination she had shown flying us through a field of tumbling rock, while weapons fire lit up the dark. Whatever came next, whatever the review board decided in 30 days, one thing was already certain in my mind. She had found me first in that burning wreck, and against every strange rule of a galaxy that did not know what to make of either of us, I was glad she had.